But Alan, people say that it is very, very difficult to sort of match the corporate culture of a government sector and the foreign or private sector, especially in Vietnam. What's the experience working with other European countries or other countries that's been using PPP framework?
I think you always have different mind between civil servants and businessmen. It exists in all countries. You know? Now, I think there is differences, of course, and this is why if you put together the appropriate frame, everybody knows what is his own responsibility, and there is nobody say I am in charge or whatever. It is clear, and this is why it's not easy. You need to have a proper legal frame.
Transparency is a big issue here in
Transparency is a big issue. I think this is the second item I wanted to mention. You need really to be fully transparent in this process. Which is not the case yet. Even I believe it's improving. It takes some time. We may need maybe.
We all know it takes some time, but how long? 3 years, 5 years.
Maybe more.
Maybe more.
If really you have a very well centralized body which is running this project the right way, I think it's feasible probably within, let's say, 3 years.
So the EU business community is very interested in infrastructure.
We are interested because we have the knowledge, we have the experience. We have been doing that for 30 years.
What exactly are they interested in? Energy, transportation?
You just name it. Water, energy, transportation, university.
University. You know? So would you say that the investors out there are ready for infrastructure projects, are just waiting for Vietnam?
Yes.
To put together the legal framework.
Yeah.
I understand that the EU business community is also a very big community in terms of importing commodities from Vietnam.
Yeah.
What sort of figures are we talking about here?
We are talking about pretty large figures. I think for 2010, we are talking about more than $10 billion.
More than $10 billion.
Yeah.
Does that put the EU up the top of the...
Number two. I think number one for 2010 is the US market, with about 12 something.
And what sort of commodities do you source from Vietnam?
Footwear, textile, wooden furniture, fisheries. That's the top 4.
Would you say that those are the EU's investment into Vietnam just to re-export?
No. It's first of all, it's Vietnamese companies, Vietnamese investment. Of course, you have a few of European investors investment or joint ventures, but of course you also have Korean investment or Taiwanese investment in Vietnam exporting to Europe. So it's globally, I think it's very much Vietnamese.
But why is the EU business community sourcing these commodities from Vietnam? Is it purely in the perspective of pricing?
First is pricing. It's mostly because they are cheap, no doubt about it, but also because of the ability of the Vietnamese workers.
Is that like the handmade sort of labor?
For example, ladies' underwear. I'm told that Vietnam is a champion in ladies' underwear because the Vietnamese
very detailed
workers
people
are able to put various pieces together very efficiently and to do it well. And this is a business where I'm told that Vietnam do much better than China, for example. Okay. So I believe the skill, the labor is important.
But there is a shortage of skilled labor in Vietnam at the moment, isn't there? And that's a big issue for
you have to train them.
Yeah.
Then the difficulty is to keep them. Yeah. So it's an issue, yes. But,
so that's one of the challenges that the EU
would
see in Vietnam. What are the other challenges do you see in terms of sourcing in Vietnam?
Consistency in quality.
Right.
I am told by our members that Vietnamese companies are able really to produce very good samples, very good first shipment.
But when it comes to real thing,
second shipment is fully wrong. So I think consistency in quality is very important.
But then you have quality standards imposed on these shipments.
Yes, and then that create issues, disputes, conflict, and all these type of things. The other challenges is, and I think this is where Vietnam has to improve a lot, is to be able to go for higher value items. We are facing at the moment at the moment is that Vietnam is not able to do much more of added value, local added value. You have to import the fabrics, you have to import the accessories, you have to import quite a lot of things from other countries. That's increased cost. And as soon as Vietnam can build up a supply chain locally, it will help to reduce the delay, and it will make Vietnam much more competitive. I think competitiveness now is becoming an issue for Vietnam, and it's a big challenge.
In terms of manufacturing and exporting.
Yeah.
The EU probably would source from other countries as well in the region, in Asia. Which are the countries that they source from?
China.
China.
China,
It's like the workshop of the world.
Yeah.
Apart from China, anywhere else?
Yeah,
Indonesia?
I think Indonesia, Thailand, India, of course. But Vietnam is ranking pretty high.
Yeah. What about, you talked about value add. That was expected, that is expected by the EU business community in sourcing countries. Would China and Indonesia do a lot better than Vietnam in terms of that?
Yes.
China
Of course. China has improved a lot, But China is becoming expensive.
Yeah.
So that's where I believe Vietnam should play a pretty good role, because Vietnam can really add more value and remain still more competitive.
I read a report by AmCham about manufacturing companies sort of moving their factories from China to Vietnam. Do you see that as well in the EU?
Yeah. It's true that we see. I have met a lot of people telling me that they are doing that. I'm not sure it has been fully implemented yet, but for sure, this is a trend. Vietnam has a golden opportunity that now business is shifting from China, the big China, to here. And if you are able really to do what China has done, to increase your competitiveness, to improve your supply chain and your local added value.
This is the window of opportunity for Vietnam, and Vietnam has to grab it.
And this is a time.
This is a time.
So you have the window is there, the window is big, and this is a time. If you have to do it, let's say, within the coming 2, 3, 4 years. If you don't, it will be a missed opportunity.
Let's talk about one of the very interesting topic, which is investment licensing. I believe that there has been a lot of challenges for investors in Vietnam in terms of getting licensing in Vietnam. So what is your personal point of view about the whole thing?
Again, you are competing with other countries, and time is money.
Yeah.
So if you have long delay for getting a license, either you go elsewhere, or you lose money, or you invest less. What we have been recommending to the government for quite some time is really to set up a real one-stop shop for investors to deal with one body. But at the moment, there is really a lot of time wasted and money.
That's because of the overlapping functions of different departments?
Or inconsistency of the requirement.
And interpretation of the law.
Interpretation of the law. It's a lot of factors.
Would you say that Vietnam has lost a lot of opportunities because of this?
Yeah. In terms of growth, it can be big money. Because if you reduce the time of getting a license from, let's say, 3 months to 1 month, or 6 months to 3 months, or 1 year, to depending on the size of the project and everything. We try to estimate how much growth, but it could be as big as 1 to 2% of growth who may disappear because of this. And I know a few companies who have come to Vietnam trying to get a license, and because they were not able to get it and the delay, then they decided not to. And I know also a few companies which are telling us, we like this country, but we wait for things to improve because we don't have enough resources to really go through this very difficult exercise.
What about investment incentives in Vietnam? Yes. What do you think about it?
I think Vietnam has to improve that, because I think for the time being, the incentives are made more on very subjective reason.
Are you saying that there's no sort of framework or law saying that you will get certain investment incentives for certain industries?
Yeah, let's say you are getting incentive if you go to certain area, but it makes sense if you want to attract investment, let's say in central Vietnam. rather than to have all investment going to, let's say, the Ho Chi Minh City hub or Dong Nai or Bin Dung. It makes sense to attract some investment. So this is good. This type of incentive, of course, the incentive has to be made in such a way that they should bring the investment you want. So you need to make incentive if you need to bring people to Central Vietnam, no doubt about it. So I think Vietnam has to structure better the incentive. Vietnam has to look very much on what is done in other countries and maybe to decide what are the industries, the sectors they really want to promote in the future and to work very hard to make sure that Vietnam is becoming the most attractive place, thanks to not thanks to the market, but also thanks to the incentive.
So in comparison to other emerging markets in Asia, let's say Indonesia, would you say that their investment incentives scheme is a lot better than Vietnam at the moment?
I am told that other countries in ASEAN are making more efforts. Thailand, for sure, are really more efficient in providing this incentive. I really do encourage the government to create more incentive on a very selective basis to make sure that they will be able to attract the quality of the investment which they need to attract to this country. And I think this is achievable.
Just one last question before we end the show. If there is a new EU business investor interested in Vietnam, what would you say to that person or that investor?
You are right to come to Vietnam. I very sincerely believe this is the right thing to do. Get the right advisor to do the things right, but definitely I will encourage him to come to this country to deal with the right people. But I'm encouraging everybody I can to come to this country. No doubt about it.
That's very optimistic of you, and I think that the situation in Vietnam should be very optimistic in the few more years. Thank you very much for being on the show with us today and providing such great insights into the dynamic interaction between the EU and Vietnam. And
thank you very much for inviting me. It has been a pleasure, and see you again. Thank you.
If Vietnam remains an attractive destination for the EU, so will it remain attractive to other regional investment communities. However, as pointed out by our guest speaker today, there are certainly quite a few challenges on the road ahead, which requires strategic approach to Vietnam's economic policies and structure. Like any other emerging markets, the transition period of this market calls for comprehensive and ongoing market research, a long-term vision, an understanding of its opportunities and challenges, and most importantly, perseverance. Thank you so much for being here with us today. If you have any questions regarding this show, please email the questions to phi@insightvietnam.com.vn. For past episodes and show updates, please visit us on WordPress, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. My name is Phi Nguyen, and I'm your host on Insight Vietnam. Bye for now, and I hope to welcome you back in 2 weeks.